This video will talk about how to use resin, liquid resin. And I use Smooth Cast 305. Comes in a two-part system, part A and part B. You mix them together in equal volumes and pour it into the mold. This is a mold, a two-part mold of one of my figures. It's made out of silicone rubber. The brand is Smooth On again, and the model, the number of the product is UMU25. It's a nice flexible resin, and it will release all of the details of the mold quite easily. Okay. Notice there are register marks, both positive and negative, in the two halves of the mold. These will go together when I put the mold together and secure the mold in the proper registration. Okay, the molds right now are set on pieces of product called Masonite, which is a very rigid, thin pressed paper or pressed wood product. And I use this on the outsides of the mold so that when they are full of resin, I can put clamps on here and give a nice even clamping force to hold the two parts together so there's no leakage at the seam. On the top of the mold there's a pour spout, and there's an air vent in one of the feet, which will allow air to escape and keep the mold, get the mold full of resin. In some cases there are more than one air vents. Notice that there's kind of a gap here at this point, but once I put pressure on, it closes that gap. The only danger is to put too much pressure on, in which case you can deform the mold. So it's something you just have to play with. So once these two molds are clamped, you can fill through here. When you see the resin come out these holes, you'll know that the mold is full. And then I bounce the mold on the tabletop a little bit to make sure there are no remaining bubbles in there that have to rise to the surface. And then I set it aside in clamps for about 20 to 30 minutes until the resin has hardened. And you can tell by poking at the resin that appears at the top of the pour spout. So now we'll get to the resin and how to use it and how to fill the molds. Okay, let's talk about the materials and tools we'll need to cast resin. First of all, my bench top is covered with several layers of newspaper, and on top of that finally a layer of wax paper. This is to prevent spills from reaching the desktop surface and making a mess. And make no mistake, there will be spills. We all do it. Okay, second, rubber gloves. Always wear rubber gloves. Protect your hands from the resin. And these are just simple, cheap rubber gloves I got at the drugstore. I use them over and over again, take them off, let them dry, and reuse them. Okay, the resin. This is my resin of choice right now, Smooth Cast 305. It comes in part A and in part B. These are both clear, watery substance liquids that we mix equal parts, and when we mix them they get a little bit opaque, and then we pour them into the mold. When they cure, they form a rock hard white, pure white resin surface. Okay, measuring. This is a medicine cup. Again, I can buy these at the local drugstore for very little money and get 100 of them. So they're quite disposable. But again, if you flex them, the resin will come off and you can reuse them. These are 30 milliliter or 1 ounce measure cups, and I find these okay for the volumes that I cast. For an example, for a full figure, I would probably use a full cup of this size of each of the two parts of the resin. When I've measured out the equal parts, we put them in a second container, a new container, and this is just a simple cup that I got from the kitchen. It had Mott's applesauce in it, but if you wash it out, it becomes a nice resin container. You notice I've nipped off the edge of the surface here on the top, and that's so I can squeeze it and form a nice little pour spout when I actually pour resin. Makes it a lot cleaner that way. And finally, 2 sticks. This one's a popsicle stick. This one's a stirring stick, both of which I purloined somewhere along the line. Important, round off all of the surfaces that are going to come in contact with the mold. You don't want anything sharp that's going to penetrate the mold or scratch it and make problems later, because the resin will form into every single nook and cranny that it can find. So you want to be very careful about treating the mold. Okay, finally, wear an apron. This is impermeable plasticized material. Again, very cheap. I don't remember where I got it, but it'll keep your clothes clean and your and whoever does the laundry very happy. So that's all the materials and tools we need. So you see it's very simple. I forgot one thing. Of course, you need a mold. This is a mold of 5 heads, and I've molded them so that when I pour, I can choose which head I want to pour. I can pour all 5, or I can pour 1 if I just need 1 at a time. Masonite strips, very, very rigid, very thin, some sort of pressed paper or wood material, available by the sheet. I cut it up to fit the particular mold, and I use it when I'm clamping a mold. And we'll get into more of this a little later. So those are all my materials and tools, and we'll get on to the techniques later.